It's very possible we may see some changes in the patterns coming up over the next couple weeks. Seems like we've been stuck in this pattern of a long wave trough on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and flat ridging through the central U.S. First, let us take a look at the temperature extremes for today. The world's hotspot, once again, Marble Bar, Australia, 116 degrees. So there's a look at Marble Bar back in 2008. Looks a little bit like Arizona. And the world's cold spot, Dalyankir, Russia, which has dipped down to minus 69. Summit Camp, Greenland, has warmed to minus 67, so they no longer have the record. But this is one of the great cold domes of Siberia, this entire area. There's Oymyakon, which has some notable records, and Dalyankir just over this ridge out to the east. And there you go, a photo from the local area. The surface map for this afternoon does show a recurring theme with weather on both coasts and rather quiet weather in the interior. We've got northerly flow in place from the Great Lakes area down to the East Coast. This is that big outgoing system that we had in the Midwest over the past couple of days. It's on its way out, but a couple of waves moving down the backside. This one bringing some snow to St. Louis, and that will shift into the southern Appalachians overnight and bring more snow activity to that part of the country. And out in the Pacific, another big weather system. This is a large baroclinic weather system that's right there on the coast, bringing bands of rain into California and Oregon, and that's going to move into the southwestern U.S. over the weekend. Looking at weather around the country in the northeastern U.S., it has been a mild December. Buffalo, Rochester, Watertown, they're looking at closing out 2023 with the second warmest December on record. Today, we've got a frontal system moving through northern New York and Maine. We've got a winter weather advisory through tomorrow morning north of Millinocket, Maine. That includes Holton and Caribou. That part of Maine could see 1 to 3 inches of additional snow and a light glaze of ice. With that other wave moving through the Ohio River Valley down into Tennessee, we're looking for another round of snow in extreme eastern Virginia. Late tonight, from roughly Cumberland down to Beckley, could see 2 to 4 inches of snow in that part of the eastern U.S. However, ridging will build in over the area this weekend, and another wave approaches for Sunday and Monday. In the southeastern U.S., we get a closer look at that secondary wave. We can switch over to water vapor for a better look. And it is kind of a subtle feature right in this area here that will cross the Blue Ridge Mountains later tonight and move into the Carolinas for tomorrow. Then we're going to see subsidence moving across the area. However, for tonight, there are winter weather advisories in eastern Tennessee, basically in that higher terrain between Nashville and Knoxville, close to the time zone change. That area of Tennessee could see about 1 to 2 inches of snow. We have a lake wind advisory for today in South Carolina and frost advisories in northeastern Florida early tomorrow morning. That includes Jacksonville and Gainesville. Temperatures there will be about 32 degrees. And the next big change is later in the weekend, around Monday, as a new wave drops out of Canada. In the south-central U.S., looking pretty good, but we do have some bands of wraparound from that large vortex making their way into Texas. But if we switch over to the visible imagery, not a whole lot going on. Most of that moisture is in the upper levels. That's producing some patches of alticumulus and cirrus. Further east, we've got the residual low-level moisture producing some stratocumulus, where we've got some capping at about 850 millibars, helping to suppress vertical development there in Arkansas. little bit further east, we get into the bands of snow showers and rain showers. Basically a cold rain around Memphis and some flurries a little bit further to the north. This area will be under northwesterly flow and ridging tomorrow, but the southern stream will become active as we get into a late weekend, and we're going to be looking at a couple of waves moving across for Sunday, ridging on Monday, and then a very strong trough moving in for Tuesday. In the north-central U.S., you can see some snow on the ground there. However, Minneapolis, International Falls, Brainerd, Hibbing, they're all going to close out December with their warmest month on record, their warmest month of December. And for Duluth, it'll be the second warmest December on record. And we're going to see another Alberta Clipper moving through this weekend. That'll bring about 1 to 4 inches of snow in the western Great Lakes. It's going to be rather dry. And you can see the issues that we're talking about here, about 0.3 to 0.2 inches of precipitable water. That's a very dry air mass. So when we get that system come through over the weekend, not much moisture to work with. So the lake effect snows will be a little bit slow to come together. And there is that system on the way. Ridging will build in for Monday, but another dry clipper will come through on Wednesday. Then a fast zonal flow sets up with a series of waves coming in from the Pacific. In the southwestern U.S., a residual plateau high, and there's that baroclinic weather system coming on shore in California. And there we've also had some warm weather in the San Joaquin Valley. Yesterday, Merced, Fresno, they broke their record highs for the date. But today, there's that Pacific weather system offshore. I'm going to shift a little bit further to the west. And there we pick up that cold front right there. Cold air advection in the wake, and a warm advection region just ahead of that surface front. Along that front, we do have precipitable waters about 1 inch. And there it is, that band of blue on the west coast. That's 1 inch and above. So there's definitely moisture to work with. And you can see that working inland overnight. And then early Saturday, moving into Southern California. A little bit drier, but still enough to support some precip. However, for today, there's the radar site out of Eureka showing deep southerly flow and bands of convection moving into northwestern California. Let's look at San Francisco. And there, the air mass is a little bit drier, not as much precip making it down to the surface, but you can see this one band right there. That's probably the leading edge of that front, moving through the Bay Area, and it will soon be in the Sacramento region. For the remainder of today, we do have wind advisories in the coastal ranges from about Bakersfield on up the coastal range into the Humboldt Redwoods south of Eureka. Improving conditions overnight as the winds shift into the Sierras. The beaches continue to be extremely dangerous due to high waves and rip currents. Therefore, there are high surf warnings and advisories along most of the coast. Swells 15 to 17 feet and breaking waves up to 25 feet throughout much of the California coastal region. Upper forcing for ascent moving in tonight, and then Arizona for tomorrow. Subsidence building in over California, and then the next big system sets up Sunday and Monday. That's going to track well south into Southern California and down into southern Arizona. Then we look at the northwestern U.S., that deep southerly flow in place throughout the troposphere, and that's pushed the temperature up near 60 degrees at Seattle. Medford broke their record high yesterday. They were 62 degrees, and that was set at 2:30 in the morning. Dense fog advisories continue through tonight in the Pendleton area right through here. That'll extend up to Kennewick and Walla Walla. The beaches are definitely hazardous. We've got high surf warnings in southwestern Oregon and advisories for sneaker waves in northwestern Oregon and southwestern Washington. The trough axis will move across the Pacific Northwest tomorrow, and a small upper-level low will track across Seattle Sunday morning. Then we get a series of waves moving in from the Pacific early next week. Then heading up north, a little bit of weather in southeastern Alaska. We've got winter storm warnings in effect for the Haines-Skagway area. The Canadian Weather Service extends that up into the Haines Junction and Carcross area. Up to 14 inches of snow expected all the way up into Yukon. Gale warnings in effect through the Sitka area in this region of tight pressure gradient. In Alaska itself, not a whole lot of weather going on, but we do have a winter weather advisory in the interior, north and northeast of Fairbanks. That continues through tonight, where we're expecting 2 inches of snow and gusty winds up to 35 miles an hour. And out around St. Lawrence Island, out into the Yukon Delta, storm warnings, marine storm warnings, with east winds to 50 miles an hour and good conditions for freezing spray. And that'll definitely put a coat of ice on any ships that are in that area. And finally, in Canada, quiet in most areas. The colder air mass still remains up there in the Canadian high Arctic. Coldest temperature appears to be minus 24 at Rhea Point. And we do have a, wind warning in effect for Salouet in North Quebec. And it is pretty stormy in Yukon. We've got snowfall warnings tonight for Dawson and Mayo for 4 to 6 inches of snow. We have a blizzard warning for the Dempster Highway, which goes up to Inuvik. That goes through tomorrow for 6 to 10 inches of snow, and snowfall warnings further north around Inuvik for tomorrow. Stormy in British Columbia, quiet in the Canadian prairies. And then moving out east, we've got freezing rain warnings in effect for northern Nova Scotia for Inverness. Those expire this evening, and there are snowfall warnings for parts of New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island for up to 8 inches of snow from Moncton to Charlottetown. A quick look at the upper air charts, 300 millibars, that's typically the level we use in wintertime. That shows a high amplitude pattern. We've got a large ridge extending from Arizona up to British Columbia and the Northwest Territories. Those Pacific systems are back in this area within that deep southerly flow, which is also transporting the moisture northward. Also a high amplitude trough in the eastern U.S. The subtropical jet and polar front jet have moved mostly south of that trough, some flow down the backside of that. And you can see the Pacific Ocean opening up here. That'll produce a prolonged period of rainy weather on the west coast going into next week. And some big changes possible coming up for early January. Some indication of a possible sudden stratospheric warming event. This is 1 millibar up at about 45 kilometers, 150,000 feet, and you can see this large vortex start to contract a little bit. And then the flow becomes somewhat asymmetric. You can see it crosses over. You can see this high pressure area develop in Eastern Asia, and it really kind of folds in on itself. You can see easterly flow developing right in here. Now, it's kind of questionable how accurate the models are at that level, considering there's not a whole lot of data, and especially this far out. This is 5 to 6 days in advance. But there seems to be a consensus that we're looking at the possibility of a sudden stratospheric warming event going into early January. So that could have implications on our weather going into mid-January. So that could be associated with a major shakeup in the patterns. Because things have definitely been stagnant, and I kind of feel we've been looking at this pattern for the past 2 months. Ridge along the Rockies, troughing on the East Coast and troughing on the West Coast. So this may shift things around and maybe get some cold air masses coming south, at least into the Great Lakes region. Much colder air masses. All right. So anyway, as we go into tonight, there's that secondary trough right there, and you can see another one on the way from the Canadian prairies. So as we go into tomorrow, the precip should start shutting down in the eastern U.S., but here comes more upper level energy. And there it is, our next Alberta Clipper, affecting Illinois and the Great Lakes for Sunday. Some northerly flow coming down from the backside. Again, this is going to be a somewhat dry system. And then we have disturbances starting to set up out there in Southern California for Sunday and Monday. And those track inland, pretty much well south of Arizona. Most of the upper level lift right in that area for late Monday. Then that heads into the Chihuahua, El Paso area for Tuesday morning, and then into Texas for Tuesday evening. So there's some strong lift heading into the Dallas and Waco area. You can see another trough setting up right there in the Central Rockies and another one off the California coast. So it's going to be kind of a busy area with that southern stream, very active. Meanwhile, northwesterly flow up there in the northern tier states later next week. So a lot of weather to look at for the following week. And you can see that little disturbance that we had out there in the Midwest. That's laid down a little bit of snow, basically from west of Chicago down to the Ozarks and down towards Paducah, maybe about 1 to 2 inches at most. And then there are heavier snow cover. You saw that on the satellite imagery in the Dakotas. So let's look at our weekend weather. There's that cold pool. That bullseye of blues, that represents the cold air mass. We use K to distinguish that. So that's centered this evening over eastern Kentucky. And if you look at soundings, you'll see very steep lapse rates in the lower part of the atmosphere. In fact, let's look at that. Okay, there we go. We'll put it on eastern Kentucky and look at that sounding. And very steep lapse rates, that's almost absolutely unstable, all the way up to about 8,000 feet. Then we pick up some slightly warmer air above that. So this is a good pattern for cold core convection. All right, then going into the weekend, here comes an outbreak of cold air from the north. Meanwhile, the rain bands move in through the San Joaquin Valley and eventually dry out as they go into Arizona for tomorrow. Not much for Saturday except for more cold air spreading southward. A little bit of interaction with that Pacific wave in Texas for Sunday. And then another weather system starting to appear right here. This is a little more potent for Monday. And you're going to see that cross the Rockies Monday into Tuesday. There it goes. Some snow showing up in Mexico and in the Sacramento Mountains. And we're going to get that overrunning set up. That's a good pattern for isentropic lift, that overrunning, because there is a warm front right through here, so that's that lift spreading over the warm front. So things spread into Texas, and we get an amplification of that precipitation, and it moves quickly eastward into the Gulf region early Wednesday. And another weather system in California. And we'll just take that through the remainder of the week. A very active southern track, and even the northeastern U.S. getting a small coastal storm for Thursday. And there you go. Lots of rain in the southeastern U.S. and California getting numerous chances for precip. Okay, that will do it for this edition of Forecast Lab. I appreciate the comments, and if you have any suggestions or inputs about the program, like if the region by regions are too long. I mean, they did run about 10 minutes today, so I don't know how interesting that is. And of course, we had to push the cross sections to the end of the program. I didn't get a chance to go over them because most of our weather systems are on either coast, but I'll put those at the end if you want to look at them anyway. So enjoy that. And a special thanks to Christopher Kane for the great Patreon pledge. All right, hope you all have a great weekend. Take care, and we will see you back here on Monday for the supporters and on Wednesday for everybody else. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.